And Paul says, I want you to bear with one another. Don't break the bond of unity that you have. And that doesn't mean you just let people walk all over you and do whatever they want. But I want you to be the kind of person that can carry one another's burdens, bearing with one another. Bearing with one another. That's the evidence of the Spirit of God. And just so you know, I'm not cherry picking some verse that Paul throws out and then rolls on to some other concept. In John chapter 17, I love this. Right before Christ is crucified, he's with the 12, and they're like, okay, it's coming to an end. What are you praying for, Jesus? What are you hoping for? And of all the things he could have said, notice what he says here. Rooted back in the Shema, verse 20 of John 17. And you got Judas there, you got Peter there, you got all the guys. And he says, my prayer is not for them alone. It's not just for the 12. He says, I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. And that's you, that's me, that's the church at Ephesus that's coming. That's the church at Rancho Bernardo. All of us are here today. So if you ever wonder, what did Jesus pray for me about? What is Jesus praying for you today? This is what he prayed for you. That all of them may be, what's the word? One. Like, What? Can you lower the bar a little bit, Jesus? He says, no, my prayer is that you'd all be one. Bearing with one another, caring for one another, loving one another, in a spirit of oneness, in the same way Trinity has that spirit of oneness. And he says, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us. And so you're invited into this Trinitarian dynamic as a Christ follower, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. So the evidence of our faith is not how right we are or how much money we raise or how big the building is. It's how one, a group of people who pledge allegiance to Christ can be. And he says, that's how you'll know. I have given them the glory that you gave me. Well, what's the glory? Does it mean I can fly now? Does it mean I always get the answer right? He says, no, here's the glory. It means that they may be one as we are one, Father. I and them and you and me, so that they may be brought to, and what's the word here? Complete. Any other thoughts, Jesus? I'm going to be honest. My family can't agree on a radio station on the way to church. And you want the whole church to be agreed? You want complete unity? That's what you're going for? You go one chapter forward, and the 12 have already messed this up. They've already dropped the ball. I love this. I don't love it, but you get it. John chapter 18, verse 17, Christ is arrested, and they've seen him do miracles. They've seen him raise the dead. You go one chapter forward, Christ is arrested. He's betrayed by Judas, who would have been at the prayer table, and he is dragged off in the middle of the night. And the soldiers are looking to round up anybody who's with him. And a girl identifies Peter, his most trusted, loyal lieutenant, and says, this guy's with the Jesus guy. And this little girl is like, hey, he's one of the guys. And she comes up to him and she says, verse 17, John 18, you aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you? She asked him. And Peter replied, I am not. Which I don't know what it's going to be like when I get to heaven, what Jesus is going to say to me. But I would love to be there when Jesus talked to the 12, at least Peter, when they got to heaven. He's got to be like, guys, you didn't make it one chapter. You didn't make it 400 words into Christianity. Like the one thing I prayed for, you'd already bailed. And Peter, and I get it, because Peter in this moment, he's going, look, boss, I've seen you do a lot of amazing stuff. The water into wine, we were unified in that moment, man. We were one. I was so with you in that moment. That moment where you walked on water and you were like, hey, Peter, you got to try this, man. I was with you in that moment. That moment where we walked into Martha and Mary's house and you raised their dead brother Lazarus, I was with you. I was championing you. I was singing your praises. I was so with you in that moment. But this moment, Jesus, I'm sorry, I am done bearing with you. And Peter knows what's true then is true now. That there is a cost to unity. There's a cost to unity. Because eventually, my proximity to you and your proximity to me, some of your problems are going to become my problems, and some of my problems are going to become your problems. Some of your burdens are going to become my burdens. Some of my burdens are going to become your burdens. And that tends to be the moment where I'm out. I don't want your burdens. And Peter in this moment's going, I don't want, like, whatever you got going, Jesus, I don't want the burden of that. And I'm breaking. There's no more unity here. And unity happens in the church. Unity happens in your relationships when you allow for somebody's pain to become your pain. You allow somebody's burden to become your burden. In proximity to somebody else, you say, I'm going to take some of that heat. I'm going to take some of that fire that's on you. I'm going to take some of that. I'm going to allow that burden, that problem, that situation to now be my burden, my problem. Sometimes it's worse than that. At one level, unity happens and the one anothering when I allow your burdens to become my burdens. At times, especially in the instance of Jesus, and this is true for a lot of us, unity happens when you are willing or you allow for somebody's enemies to become your enemies. And that's especially when we're going, I don't want their enemies. And we live in a cultural moment where you know this is true, where everybody wants to be liked, but nobody really likes anybody. And we want to ring up as many thumbs or whatever it is that we can get and accumulate as much like as we have. But the moment it gets hard or there's heat on me, I don't want to bear anybody's burdens. I don't want anybody's enemies to be my enemies. I'm not sticking my neck out for that. And in this moment, Peter's going, Jesus, your enemy is Rome, for crying out loud. I don't want your enemies to be my enemies. And so I'm breaking the bond of peace, even though I know you. And that's where unity gets really hard, because at times it means your burdens become my burdens, or at times it means your enemies become my enemies, especially if you have put yourself in a situation where you've stepped out of the faith. You've done something. You know these moments. Maybe it's in your peer group. You have that friend, and all of us have this story where there's that friend that had the affair. It's that person in your life that everybody right now is talking about them, but nobody's talking to them. And so every Saturday, once a month, you guys, go to brunch. And JoJo used to be at the table. But JoJo had the affair. And now everybody's talking about JoJo, but nobody's talking to JoJo. And I got to pick a different name. And now you're sitting at the table and you're going, this isn't right. And something in the Spirit of God in you prompts, maybe you should go talk to her, talk to him, instead of talking about him. And so you show up to JoJo's house and you're like, hey, I just want to talk to you. And you know what happens the moment you do that. At the brunch table, they're not talking about JoJo anymore. Who are they talking about? They're talking about you. And in a spirit of unity, you allowed for all of JoJo's enemies to become your enemies because you want peace, you want harmony, you want unity. And you stepped into the fire of that. Said, I'm going to take some of that heat in this moment. I'm going to allow some of that to come on me.